Good afternoon and welcome to today's Veterans Day Assembly, and thanks to our Student Council for hosting this special event, to Mrs. Harris, my secretary, for helping take care of all the logistics, and Mrs. Davis, to our PTSA who set up a beautiful snack area and decorations in the library classroom for our veterans, and a special thanks to our veterans who joined us here today. We will hear from them in a few moments. Veterans Day was first recognized by President Woodrow Wilson in 1919. The day was originally known as Armistice Day and marked the end of World War I, which occurred on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918, 100 years ago this coming Sunday. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower changed the name to Veterans Day as a way to honor all American veterans, and we continue to honor our veterans today. Today, we take time to honor many of our own relatives and neighbors, especially the 5 of our own American veterans here with us, for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for all of us. So Monday, during your day off, go ahead and sleep in a little, watch some TV, play outside with your friends, and maybe get caught up on some of your homework because the quarter does end next week. But also pause to take time to remember a veteran you know. Think about the messages you hear today from our veterans, and nothing I say can express how appreciative we are to our veterans on this stage, but your respectful audience behavior and full attention will speak louder than words. Now please welcome your Student Council Treasurer, Emily Yuan, who will introduce our first veteran.
Good afternoon. My name is Emily, and I'm here to introduce Mr. Montulli. He is currently a social studies teacher at our school, and he served in the U.S. Navy from 1992 to 1998. He was a second-class petty officer, and he served in Central and South America as well as the Persian Gulf. Now let's welcome Mr. Montulli.
Thank you very much. I was 20 years old when I enlisted in the United States Navy, and I certainly didn't think about it being some huge sacrifice. Like many people who served in the armed forces, I feel like I got out a lot more than they got out of me. I was able to learn a trade, travel the world, I made lifelong friendships, and I matured a whole lot in the 6 years that I was in the Navy. To be honest, it was a great time in my life, and I have many fantastic memories from those years. And I feel like the sacrifices that were asked of me were small in comparison to what many others were asked to sacrifice. For me, it was missing major family events, milestones, holidays, birthdays, weddings. But for others, it was much, much more. The new father, missing the birth of their child, or simply the months of separation from a young family, and missing all the firsts that go along with that. The first steps, the first words, the first goal, the first broken bone, the first day of school. The numerous birthday parties, holiday celebrations, graduations, baseball games, band, chorus concerts, or any number of other special events that they were asked to miss because they were deployed overseas. These things can never be made up, and by themselves they may not seem like much, but the longer one serves, the more they and their family are asked to sacrifice. So on Veterans Day, take a moment to think about all those veterans and their families who were asked to sacrifice all those special moments and often much, much more. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Tess, and I'm here to introduce Erica and Stenot. Erica was a major in the U.S. Army who served for 5.5 years on active duty and more than 15 years in the individual ready reserve. She served at training missions. She was on the mission Cobra Gold in Thailand and Yamasakura in Japan, and participated in training exercises including JRTC and Warfighter. Let's give a warm welcome to Erica Stenot.
Good afternoon. So my Army experience was a little different than some of my fellow veterans today. I joined the Army after law school. So I took what's called a direct commission into the military and became a member of the Judge Advocate General's Corps, which is the group of lawyers who serve the Army. What I didn't know or appreciate as much when I joined, however, was that the motto of the JAG Corps is soldier first, lawyer second. So a lot of people think, oh, if you were a lawyer in the Army, you just sat at your desk and did lawyery stuff. No, we did all the same things that the rest of the soldiers did. I had to learn to qualify or to shoot with an M16 weapon. I had to do the running and push-ups and sit-ups with everybody else, all the physical training. I had to deploy on training missions and exercises with any unit that I was assigned to. I will tell you, it is the single greatest professional experience I've ever had. How many people in here have ever been part of a team, a sport team or a club? It's a great feeling to be part of the team, right? Well, the Army is one of the biggest teams in the United States, and it is a great team. And I was so proud to have the privilege of getting to be a part of it. Like Mr. Montulli, I didn't have to sacrifice what many families have to sacrifice. There are people certainly who serve, who lose their lives, come back significantly injured from their service. I'm one of the fortunate ones who didn't have any of those things happen to me. Like Mr. Montulli, I would encourage you on Monday to think a little about the people who serve our country. For me, I studied the Constitution a lot in law school, and I really believe in what it stands for. And joining the JAG Corps to me was my opportunity to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States that gives us all the freedoms that we have. This week was Election Day. Our right to vote is protected by the Constitution, along with many of our other rights. And so my choice to serve was largely driven by wanting to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. So thank you all for being here today. I hope you learned some things today, and I do hope you get the opportunity to think about or thank a veteran on Monday. Thank you.
I am here today to introduce Morty Goldman, who was a first-class airman in the U.S. Air Force. He served in Florida and Minnesota for 4 years. So please welcome Morty Goldman.
Hi, guys. Thank you for coming today. This is a big honor for me. I went into the military when I was 19 years old. I graduated from high school, and I didn't know what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to go right into college. And I checked around, and I found that the Air Force offered me some training, technical training that I was looking for, electronics to be specific. So what happened is I spent a year in tech school in Mississippi, learning to repair radar. You've seen these big radars at the airport. I was on the top of a third floor in Florida, protecting the Southeast United States. It was a great honor to me. I enjoyed it a lot, learned a lot, made some good friends, and felt that I was protecting my country. Now, I look out here, and I'm guessing that many of you have relatives, probably fathers, grandfathers, even mothers and grandmothers that served in the military. If you get the opportunity to think about that on Monday, as your principal said, it's a good thing. And for those of you that I know that our school here has a reputation of sending everybody to college, but you might want to think about after college, as our friend here did, or even before, if that's something that you're interested in, to learn some specialized training. I thank you again for coming here, and it's a pleasure to be before you.
I'm
I'm Jasleen Cabrera, and I'm here to introduce Morton Stein. Mr. Stein worked in the U.S. Army as a New York Guard. He was in the Army for 4 years. He was a lieutenant in New York. Welcome, Morton Stein.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting us to be with you this afternoon. Like many of the ladies and gentlemen before me, mentioned that they waited a little bit longer till they were after college or prior to college and then went into the military. I did the same thing. I went into the military right after college, and I was very fortunate that the group that I joined was the New York Guard, and they were stationed because it was New York State. I was stationed right here. I did my training at Camp Smith, just outside of New York City, and we were stationed right in this area at different locations in and around New York State. The time that I spent in the military was very important to me. Some of the friends that I made when I served in the military, we are still close, we're still friends, and we stay in touch. I found it very rewarding to the time that I spent in the Army and in the New York Guard. But we're here for Veterans Day, not only for the men and women who are sitting up here on stage, but there are many veterans that did not come back. And that's what we need to think about when we think about Veterans Day. The men and women who sacrificed their lives for the freedoms that you have and the ability to sit here in this auditorium and listen to our stories and be able to participate in the freedoms that the men and women of this country gave their lives and gave of themselves in many ways so that you can be sitting here. I'm just going to ask a few questions and ask you if you can raise your hand if you've seen this before. In front of the Brighton Town Hall, there is a bench that is in marble, black marble, with the name of a soldier who was unfortunately killed in Afghanistan. How many of you have seen that black bench? The name on that black bench is Greg Smith. And like you, many years ago, he was sitting in that seat, those seats. I taught here at 12 Corners Middle School for 33 years. In fact, those of you who last year had Mr. Telex for science, that's the room that I taught in for 33 years. And Greg was one of my students back then, and unfortunately was killed in a helicopter crash in Afghanistan. So every time we approach Veterans Day or Memorial Day, Greg is always in the back of my mind, thinking of what he could have accomplished if he had survived Afghanistan. I also taught at the college while I was teaching here at 12 Corners. I taught at Nazareth College for a number of years. And as much as I hate to reflect on it, but I lost 2 of my graduate students in Iraq. So when I think about Veterans Day and when I think about the service of the men and women today and the men and women in the service that did not come back, those are the people I think about. I'm proud of the service. I'm hoping some of you will decide to go into the military, either before, during, or after school. If you decide to go on to college, there's also the Reserve Officers Training Corps. And it might be something you want to think about so that when you're out of college, you can give back to the country what the country has given you. Thank you for inviting me.
Finally, we have Mr. Stu Bloom. He served in the U.S. Navy for 20 years, from 1961 to 1981. He was a first-class damage control and served in the sea duty, submarine service, and patrol boat duty during the Vietnam War. Let us welcome Mr. Stu Bloom.
I'm going to try and hold this together as best I can. First of all, what does Veterans Day mean to me? Well, my story, and this is part of it right here, it's my Purple Heart. I'm going to go back to June of 1961, my day of graduation, Charlotte High School, right here in Rochester, down at the beach. I walked up on the stage to get my diploma, and the principal said to me, "Stu, I told you in September I'd get you out of here." July of 1961, I was sworn into the United States Navy. I did my basic training at Great Lakes, Illinois. My MOS, which was my military service thing, was a damage controlman, did that at Bainbridge, Maryland. After I received my damage controlman rating, I volunteered to go into submarine service. I was selected to go, and I had my first graduated submarine service, and I had my orders for my first boat. Don't you ever call a submarine a ship. It's a boat. Okay, that's beside the point. I was here in Rochester visiting my father. It was in April, I'll give you the exact date, April 9th, 1963. I had my orders for the boat, which was in Portsmouth, New Hampshire. I couldn't get out of Rochester due to a storm. Now, you youngsters know today that if there's a storm, the planes fly. Back in 1963, if there was a storm, they didn't fly. Well, I couldn't get to the boat. I was stuck here. The boat left, and didn't get down there until a couple days later. The boat left at 8 o'clock in the morning on April 10th. In your history, if you look, maybe some of your teachers will know, there was a U.S. submarine that's laying on the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. It's called the Thrasher. This boat imploded after it left. It was at a depth of about 800 feet, and it just imploded due to a bad weld. I had orders for that boat. I consider myself a survivor on that. I said to myself, "Stu, why are you going to go in the submarine service?" And I volunteered for Vietnam. Well, I was in Vietnam. I was on the patrol boat, and it ended up that I was wounded over there and came home, and I went back and spent my time in the submarine service. I got to tell you, if you're not college material, the service is the best place to go. You can learn a trade. You can learn an occupation. Money can be put aside, where if you decide afterwards you can go to college, it's the best way to go under the GI Bill. Getting away from that, this is what's known here as a Purple Heart, for showing that you were wounded in the time of war. This one here was given to me by the commanding officer of the submarine that I was on after I came back from Vietnam, USS Simon Bolivar. So this is it. Once again, Veterans Day means to me, I think of the 129 men that were on the Thrasher, and I also think of 7 of us. There was 10 of us that went to Vietnam. I'm one of 3 that came home. If you see a veteran, thank them for their service. It means a lot to them. Thank you, and enjoy the holiday.
During your social studies classes this week, you wrote some great questions that the veterans have looked through. I'm afraid we're almost out of time to be able to answer those, so I'm going to give the veterans some homework. If they could choose a few of those questions to look at and respond to our kids, we'd love to hear. But Maury, I saw your hand up. I think you've got one you've got to answer. I've just got the feeling.
But most importantly, you'll notice I'm wearing an honor flight shirt. Last April, Stu and I were on an honor flight to Washington, and on the way down, they yell out mail call, and I got 5 letters from this school. I came in, and I have a picture, if anyone wants to see it later. In here, I was with the 5 students that wrote the letter. When you're given the opportunity to write a letter to these veterans that are on honor flight, please do it. It's very important. It was a very moving experience for me, and much more when I came here. Your principal told me that he sometimes brings some of you to when the honor flights come home. This year, we sent 6 groups down there. Hopefully, we'll do the same again next year. If you get a chance to be at the airport on a Sunday when they come back, it's really wonderful. I'll answer one question so I don't eat up everybody's time. How did you develop an interest in being in the military? How old were you? I was 19, and as I said before, I saw it as an opportunity to learn a technical thing. I forgot to tell you that you heard that there is military incentive once you get out of the military to go to college. I did go to college on military. They helped me. I do have a degree from RIT in a technical field that married very well with what I learned in the military. Thank you. And Stu, thank you.
At this time, I'd like our student council officers and Rachel to present each of the veterans with a certificate for helping us out today to learn more about Veterans Day and their service. Could they all our veterans stand up and the students present them with a token of appreciation? Come on around, students, all the way to the front. Present the certificate, shake their hand, and we'll get a picture of you with your veterans. Thanks, guys. Thanks for your great audience today. Enjoy the weekend. Remember your veterans.